Welcome back to a new video. It is time to set up a journal for the second half of the year, since I have amazingly filled my bullet journal for the first half of the year, and I'm using this hand-bound, coptic stitched, homemade, I guess, journal that I put together, and I'm really excited to get into it. If you happen to hear some noises in the background, that would be the rain. It is a lovely rainy day here, and I am enjoying it entirely. Since I am starting a new journal, that means I have to put together my front of journal material as well as information for the first month of this journal, which would be July, and I think I'm going to do two different themes for those. The front of journal theme, I will do a favorite of mine, which is some sort of dark academia, light academia mishmash, old vintage paper and maroons and purples and just all those lovely things that are perfect for a writer, which is good because that's what I am. So I'm just putting in some letter paper. This is nothing terribly special. I just got some papers off of Amazon that were different backgrounds, letters and maps and things, and I'm just gluing that in with some glue tape, and I will be putting in some washi tape and papers and things that I got from various sources. This little Athena piece of artwork, this print, I got from Paper Monogatari in the Dark Academia collection, and I think it's really nice. It's one of the last pieces of print that I have from that collection, although I still have some PET tape that I will be using. And then the washi tapes I got from Journal Say, and I'm just adding in a little frame and date notification so that I can remember what year this was when I look back on it. Normally, when I'm starting a new journal, I tend to glue the first page to the end sheet because they have that funky fold there that makes it a little bit unusable, but because this is a coptic stitch binding, the end paper, as you can see on the left there, is perfectly flat and glued to the cover, and it works really nicely. So I only need a single page spread for the cover sheet. Here I'm just adding in some teeny tiny stickers from that Paper Monogatari Dark Academia PET tape. These are little stars and ink splotches, and they add just a little bit of extra visual interest to the page. Don't worry if you can't see them, I can barely see them myself, and I was staring right at them. Just a couple more stickers on this cover page, and then I can add the date information with a Copic fine liner in sepia, and we'll go from there. I am sure that there are lots of different pages that people add to their front of journal setup, and I will probably explore some in the new year, but for this one I'm keeping things fairly simple and using the pages that I used in my bullet journal for the first half of the year, and that is starting with a year in pixels tracker, although this is technically 6 months in pixels, and that will be on the left hand side of the paper there. I like to color in the squares with colors to track my mood for the day. I have a sparkly blue pen that is my favorite. It is my favorite color, and so that is my really good day. And then purple being less good than blue, green being worse than purple, gray being kind of just melancholy, and then reds and yellows and such for, oh dear, this was a disaster. Thankfully, in the first 6 months of this year, I haven't had too many of those, so we'll see if I can keep that up for the second half of the year. I'm going to change out this ruler in a moment because I don't love the edge that it gives. It's fine for things like paint markers where things smudge a bit, but otherwise it can cause some issues. This is another washi tape that I got from Journal Say. This is a kind of script washi in a lovely light brown color, craft paper color. It's just nice to add a bit of visual interest to the page. Don't look too closely at the text though, because as far as I can tell, it is absolute nonsense. Very pretty absolute nonsense, but nonsense nonetheless. And yes, I realized in editing that I got this slightly out of frame. It's a new notebook. I'm still figuring out the best placement there. This thinner washi tape I also got from Journal Say. It's actually a purple, though you can't really tell on camera. It looks almost black, but it is a purple. And this tape that I'm putting down now is actually black, and it has tiny little gold script on it, and it's just fun and nice to look at. Now to add some more stickers, little stars and ink splotches and things, and a few other bits and bobs from this PET tape, and that should be that. I am putting in all of my titles for this setup sideways. I could have put them along the top, I guess, but for some reason I just had it in me to put it along the side, and I think it works out very nicely. On the facing page from my mood tracker is a kind of adventure log. I work from home and I have various health issues that mean I can't really go out a lot, and so I tend to not leave the house much. I'm, highly introverted and more than happy to spend a good deal of my time on my own with my dogs and cats, and that's great and it suits me pretty well, but I understand quite fully that if I don't actually schedule in activities, I will never leave the house at all except to go to the grocery store, and that seems a bit sad. So I am doing my best to have an activity once a month that I can go do. I will admit I haven't been great about it the first half of the year. I've only gotten about half of my activities in. I have done other activities within the month, just not the ones that I had scheduled. So I'm going to try and do a little bit better about that in the second half of the year. I have had to schedule things in the summertime, July, August, September, that just don't require being outside much because it gets rather toasty where I live, and I don't love that. So those are indoor activities or driving around and exploring certain area activities, things where I can rely on air conditioning, and I'm okay with that. The autumn and beginning of winter months, I will do things that require a bit more excitement, a little bit more out of the car, out of the house, not so much air conditioning activities. So it should be fun. Again, the tapes that I'm using I got from Journal Say, just a purple script washi tape with a bit of squiggles along the edge, and then another tiny script washi tape in a craft paper color. And that is the year in pixels and my adventure log, and I am determined that I'm going to keep up with my adventures and have a good time. Alrighty, moving on. This is more work related. This is my writing projects for the year. I don't necessarily follow a list of writing projects that have to be done in any given year. I have a general plan for finishing or continuing series if I am in the middle of them, but as to the precise timeline, that's a bit more fluid. However, I do like to keep track of what I'm working on and what I plan to work on, because I am constantly coming up with ideas. Constantly. They pop into my head at the most inconvenient times. Sometimes they're fully fleshed out and they stick with me for days and days and days, and sometimes they're just an inkling of idea that I can write down and figure out later. However, as I do have to actually market my books, I need to know, generally speaking, what I'm going to be working on that year so that I can focus my marketing endeavors a bit more precisely than simply focusing on book launches whenever those happen to occur. So I write down 8 different projects. There's no way that I'm going to get to all 8 in a year. It just happens to be the list of projects I want to keep working on. Hello, my curly head. And I keep track of things that I want to write next, so they don't get lost in the ether. And I'm also keeping track of things that I'm currently working on and going from there. So not all of these are the same as were on my list in the first half of the year, but I think it's fairly similar enough. I have refined things down a bit more to know, okay, I need to be working on this. I started a cozy fantasy series that was not on the books, even remotely, but I'm having such a fun time and I can't seem to help myself, so we're going from there. I also keep track here of stories that I am working on by hand. I currently have one book that I'm trying to write by hand. It will not be a fast project. This is not something that I have plans to publish anytime soon. This is simply something to write for me and to see if I even can write a book by hand anymore, because that's how I used to do all of my writing, and I am actually quite pleased with the progress in this one. I have gotten halfway through my notebook. It's about, 500 pages, I'd say. I'm quite pleased with it. Am I halfway through the story? I have no idea, because I am a consummate pantser, and that's just how my brain works. There is no planning, only writing, and chaos, and critters. Alright, now that the writing log is done, I am doing one more work-related spread, and this is the social statistics page. Now, I don't pay a huge amount of attention to social media statistics. I'm not looking at how many followers or paying attention to my Instagram posts all that often. It's just not something I pay that much attention to, but it is useful for marketing purposes to look at the overall account metrics and to figure out what's growing where, or what's growing fastest, and where I need to focus some of my energy. So I write down the basic statistics across various platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, YouTube, that sort of a thing, and I just keep kind of an overarching view of how things are doing so that I can hone my marketing. Marketing seems to take up a good deal of my time as a writer. I will admit that I had hoped when I first started writing full-time that marketing would not be this big of a part of my day, but alas, needs must. So, if I'm going to pay attention to the social media statistics and marketing such, I may as well add it to my bullet journal and make it look pretty, because if something is pretty, it makes me happier, and I am more likely to enjoy doing it. And if not enjoy doing the social media stuff, at least I can enjoy looking at the statistics page. Just adding in some final stickers, and then that will be the last page for the start of journal setup, and then we can move into the July pages, which will be decidedly more work focused, not so much adventures. For the July pages, since I'm doing a different theme than the start of journal pages, I am going to use this set that I got from the latest Archer and Olive subscription box. They did a desert theme, and the washi tapes and the stamps that came with it I think are kind of fun. They're not really my go-to color scheme. I tend to like blues and greens and grays and more muted colors, so this is a bit bright for me, and it's got a lot more oranges and reds and pinks than I would normally use, but when I put everything together, I think it looks really quite nice, and I like it. So I'm pleasantly surprised, and I think it suits very well for July, which is usually hot and mostly dry here. We're getting into the drier season, although this year has been quite wet, so we'll see how it goes. This one in the middle, this tape in the middle, doesn't show up very well on camera, but it has a dark red with some gold lines in it, and I think it looks really very interesting, and it's quite nice to look at when I'm flipping through my pages. This first page, I had actually set up a page for content planning for July in my first half of the year bullet journal, because I had intended to do it during the month of June, my content planning for July, because I was taking a holiday the last week of June, first week of July sort of a thing, and I decided that no, I really need to have the content planning in my July setup, simply because I refer back to it throughout the month, and I don't want to have 2 bullet journals out the whole month of July to refer back to that page. So I am reworking things to stick things into the July journal. That's all right. This is a fairly standard setup for me. It is pictures on the left and reels on the right for taking pictures of books and my writing and such for marketing purposes throughout the month. And I tend to schedule things in advance, so that keeps track of what I am doing when. And having the pictures separate from the videos definitely makes a difference, since I don't often overlap them. I should, perhaps a bit more than I have done, but oh well. The pens that I'm using for the July setup pages are all gel pens that came in that Archer and Olive subscription box. I really only use their gel pens for decorative things like filling out my Year in Pixels page or doing journal setups. The tips are just a little too big for my handwriting. I have very small handwriting and large pens are very uncomfortable to write with, so I don't use the gel pens for writing so much. I would love to find some itty bitty teeny tiny gel pens, but I have no idea where that would come from or if it's even a thing. So I guess I'll just have to live with a large collection of decorative pens. I should probably get rid of some at some point, but I will admit that I do like pens. Even if I don't use them for writing, I'm kind of a sucker for office supplies and pens, and I have a hard time letting go of them. Oh well. This page is further content planning prep. This is, on the left, I will plan YouTube videos and such. I'm starting a second project that I will tell you more about in the future, so that is also going on the left there in the bottom box. And on the right side I have some posts I have to plan for a reader group over on Facebook, and then this month and next month in particular I have posts to plan for a reading challenge that I'm doing with the Indie Fantasy Addicts Summer Reading Challenge, and it's going to be quite fun. I'm really excited about this one. I love reading fantasy books, and I love winning prizes for reading fantasy books. So, yeah. It does mean a bit more planning on the content side of things, but oh well. I am not hugely a stamp person. I think they're fun, but I've never really used them much in my journal. I will say that this set of silicone stamps from that Archer and Olive box are actually kind of fun. I like the colors, and I had fun figuring out how best to apply pressure to get an even stamping, and I think I may use more stamps in the future. I may not. It is a bit of a bother to have to clean off the stamps every time and put everything away and such, but I think it looks really nice, so I guess it depends on how much aesthetics wins out over a bit of bother. This next page that I'm doing is my word count tracker for the month. This is where I keep track of what projects I'm actively working on and how much I wrote in each of those projects. The top half of the graph is digital writing on the computer, how many words I did, and then the bottom little small grid is how many pages I hand wrote, or if I hand wrote that day. And it's just fun. It turns into a nice colorful bar graph at the end of the month, and I really like looking at it. It's also very useful to figure out how long projects take me and where I need to be spending my time. I will admit that I don't write as quickly as I used to. I think it's because I do a lot of editing as I write instead of waiting until the end of a draft to rewrite things. I do that too. I will absolutely do rewrites after I've finished a draft, but I also tend to do more editing while I'm writing, which means that it takes a little bit longer for me to finish a book. I think it's fine though. I feel like I'm applying more of my knowledge about storycraft from the get-go than just completely winging it and seeing what happens. I'm still absolutely a pantser. I don't outline at all. But I do have a sense of where the story needs to go, and I can fix it if it causes too many problems. I will note that this paper is only 70 GSM, 70 pound paper. It's a lighter paper than the typical notebook that I use for bullet journaling, which is 120 GSM, and no, I don't remember how many pounds that is. I will say that this paper is very nice and I like it quite a lot, but it is a little bit thinner, so there is a smidge of ghosting that you can see from the stamps, and not so much the pens. The pens have done very well, but the stamps in particular you tend to see just a little bit on the other side. This doesn't really bother me, so I don't mind too much, and I do like the thinner paper because it's a bit more compact and not quite so heavy. This spread is two different things. On the left side, I have my habit tracker. This is where I keep track of whether I have written in a day or made something, or if I have moved beyond my standard walking the dogs activity tracker, and then just other bits and pieces. I tend to track a few things every month and see what habits are forming and that sort of a thing. So I like that, and I like watching all of the little tick marks manifest throughout the month. I think that's quite fun. And on the right side of the page is just a basic memory keeping spread. This is where I will put pictures or stickers or postcards or whatever from my one activity a month, as well as other things if they arise. And it's fun to just have a little bit of memory keeping. I don't require that I fill up each page, which is why I add some decoration. But if it does get filled, then the decoration will get covered and it'll be fine. And if it doesn't, then it's just pretty. And I think sometimes we just need a bit of pretty. This next spread is the last of my functional spreads for July. This is my reading tracker. This is where I keep track of my books read, how many books I bought, what books I bought, did I get rid of any books, and then the ratings and titles read on the right-hand page there. And this is mostly to keep track for things like talking about the books in marketing purposes, or for the summer reading challenge, or just for fun. And then I will do a more complete breakdown of all of these in my reading journal. I don't like to keep my reading journal right on my desk every day. It tends to be more of a off to the side project, and so this is my everyday tracker for reading and books and such. Alrighty, now we're going to get into the weekly spreads. In my first half of the year, I did a kind of a breaking each page into quarters and then doing one day in each quarter with a little decorative bit at the bottom. And for this, because the notebook is pretty much the same size, it's not quite an A5, but very close. And so I thought about doing something similar there, but it is a little bit slightly different form factor, just enough that I didn't like the way the quarters would look. So what I'm doing is actually breaking down the left page and the right page into 7 sections and doing 1 day in each section. So each double page spread ends up being a 2-week weekly spread. And that's perfectly fine. I don't need any more space. As I've said, my handwriting is quite small, so it fits very well. And I usually just use my weeklies for keeping track of things like to-do lists and running tasks and that sort of a thing. I have a different calendar that I use for appointments and what day it is, and that I keep completely separate. So this is purely work task related, and I think having 2 weeks per double page spread will work just fine. And with that, let's have a look and see what we set up for this brand new second half of the year bullet journal. I really like how this came out. I love the 2 different themes and how they're both coherent in their own right, but they're just kind of fun and a bit exciting to start. I love starting a new journal, so this is one of my favorite times of year, starting a new journal, and I'm really excited to get to play around with this one since I made it myself, and I love it so much, and I really hope that you love it too. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Happy reading, happy writing, and I shall see you next time.